This is a Renault Clio 182, and this video that you're watching is the definitive guide to them. From the specifications when they were new, right through to the common problems that they tend to have today, we're going to cover it all. Now let's go. So introduced in 2004, the range of 182s can be a wee bit confusing, but let me talk you through it. So at the bottom of the food chain, we had the basic 182. Now that came with just a small spoiler, no front lip, and suspension maybe a little bit higher than we're used to seeing on these cars. So from factory, you could then get one of two or even both cup packs applied onto that base 182. Cup pack number one was the spoiler cup pack. That added a slightly larger spoiler and the front lip to the car. Cup pack number two added slightly lower suspension, a wider track, and these anthracite wheels that you see on this car as well, even though this car doesn't have the cup pack number two. So here's where the confusion starts, because although those are cup packs, you could also get a Renault Clio 182 Cup, which was a separate model altogether. Now that car came with the two cup packs as standard, and the easiest way to spot one of them is it won't have the front headlamp washers because they didn't come with xenons. Now the final 182 was the trophy. If residuals are important to you, this might be the one to look at because there was only 500 made, therefore they are quite rare. They were also all painted in red as well. So you've chosen your specification of Clio, you've found a car, and now you've gone to have a look at it. What do we need to check? Well, let's start under the bonnet, and what we've got here is largely the same 2-litre 4-cylinder that you found in the Clio 172s. Now it is a really good reliable engine so long as it's been taken care of, so check that service book, make sure it's been serviced on schedule and it's not missed any. Now the most significant piece of maintenance is the timing belt on these. You want to make sure that's been done and the seller's not just putting it into your hands as this labour intensive job is required. So the interval on that is 72,000 miles or 5 years, whatever comes first. So on that receipt for the timing belt, you also want to make sure the auxiliary belt and the tensioner has been replaced also. That's a pretty comprehensive job, and that applies to most cars when you're doing the timing belt. Now if the car's gone to a specialist, someone who knows these 182s, you may even see the dephaser pulley has also been replaced. This makes up part of the variable valve timing system, and if it's not done and starting to go faulty, you'll hear it rattle when hot. We'll remind you of that later though, don't worry. So it never hurts to have a quick look under for leaks. Unfortunately, they could be quite common from this engine, usually not a massive problem. And part of the reason that this happens is because when Renault assembled these engines, they used a non-solidifying sealant, and over the years the oil eats away at it until it eventually finds its way through. There's also a power steering switch that can be quite common for starting to leak underneath the engine. Overall, just have a look underneath for any fluids and bring that into negotiations if you see anything. As I say, usually it can be put right with not too much cost. So out and out gearbox failures, thankfully, are not too much of an issue. It's not common, although some of the drivetrain components can be a bit susceptible to wear. General stuff like the clutch, the drive shafts and whatnot, but we'll talk about that a wee bit more once we get out on that test drive. Now while we're at the front here, something worth mentioning, the wipers, these can give a bit of trouble. Usually it tends to be a bit of chafed wiring, sometimes in the door, or it can be a failed motor as well. So check these, usually they'll tend to stick mid-screen, and of course if you see them sticking, make sure you bring that into the bargain, save yourself a bit of money to get that put right. Washer jets, these are infamous for becoming blocked as well. Might seem insignificant, but remember that's an MOT failure here in the UK, so it's going to need to get rectified as well. Now before we get on to this next check, a favour to ask from you guys, and that is we're dedicated to becoming the largest car buyer guide channel on YouTube. We make these guides for literally every type of car, so it might be a worthwhile subscribe for you. Also, if you're getting value from this, go ahead and hit the like button, even leave a comment below for us. And on another note, if you're in the market for one of these 182s and you're looking for one with none of these common problems, here she is. This car happens to be for sale. If you want any details on it, drop a comment below or send an email to the email address in the description. So unfortunately, rust is becoming a wee bit of a problem on these cars, not as much as the Japanese equivalent. However, it's still something you want to be mindful of. Usually can tend to be around the filler cap. It can also be the sills as well. Be careful when you check these, by the way, because it's got these big bulky side skirts on. You might think you're looking at the metal sill. In fact, you're looking at a plastic side skirt. So get your hand right under there, make sure everything seems okay. And another area that's come to light lately is around the rear arches. Not on this car, don't get me wrong, but on some examples you can see it around that rear arch. Front, however, is plastic, so no worries there. So something to be mindful of on these cars, particularly as they're getting a little bit older, is water ingress. Let's start at the boot or trunk for our American viewers. I don't actually know if you get these in America, do you? Maybe someone can confirm. But make sure you get right under this carpet, have a look for any water, of course, and also evidence that there's been water there. Any mould or any staining is a dead giveaway. Quite often it is just these little rubber bungs that we've got on the side here. They can get slightly gummed up. They just need taken out, cleaned, a bit of Tiger Seal on there for good measure, and that should take care of it. But of course, bring that up with the seller, keep a little bit of money back. We like a bargain. So while we're on that topic of water ingress, of course, check the interior carpets and under the seats as well. There's a few different areas that water can find its way in. There's some blocked scuttle drains, and also these door seals can give out. Let us know if you'd like a DIY filmed of all the common areas that can cause this kind of problem. But for right now, we're just highlighting it for you so you can bring it up with that seller and save yourself a bit of money. Right, I think that's enough. Let's hit the road now. You know what? In our contemporary world full of mega power hot hatches, the 182 really is a breath of fresh air. It kind of harkens back to a time when you had to carry a bit of speed through corners. You had to plan overtakes a little bit more carefully because you just don't have those slabs of turbocharged torque. It really is a fun little car, and if what you're looking for is a small, involving, fun car, you're not going to be disappointed. But anyway, what do we need to check out on this test drive? So first thing, it's not actually a problem, but something I want to make you aware of, and that is you get a fair bit of movement out of this gear stick. Not an issue, as I say. The mounts for them are quite weak, even if they're in good condition, so don't worry about that. What you do need to be concerned with, however, is the clutch and the drive shafts. That was something we mentioned just briefly back at the garage. So the clutch, like any other car, get it into a higher gear, floor the throttle, and make sure those revs aren't shooting up without the car gaining any momentum. It's a self-adjusting clutch, so if it's starting to get high near the top of the pedal, that clutch might need replacing soon. And obviously, labour-intensive job, you don't want it all coming out of your pocket, so bring a bit off the cost if you can. Drive shafts, again, this is an item that can wear and go wrong, and usually you're going to feel that as a vibration coming through the steering wheel, so just bear it in mind. Something quite trivial, but it is a little bit nasty to the touch, as the steering wheel can kind of melt. It's this cheap leather, and as it melts you start to feel it on your hands, and it can be a bit sticky. So again, if that's something that's going to bother you, and the car is a nicer example, unfortunately this car does have it, that's the only thing this car has, it's a little bit of a negative, you can maybe bring that into the price, keep enough money back so you can get that retrimmed and looking good. Now the final thing on this test drive of the car is listen out for the rear wheel bearings. They're susceptible to wear, and when they do, they start to make that wheel bearing rumble noise like roller skates on a concrete floor. Just listen out for it. Again, it's not the end of the world, but if it keeps you a bit of money back, then it's better in your pocket than the seller's, isn't it? Right, that's all the checks you need to do, but don't click off of this video just yet. Wait and see what we give it in the reliability leaderboard. So the Clio 182 then, how does it score on a reliability leaderboard? Well, they actually are pretty reliable in the grand scheme of things. They are simple cars, there's not an awful lot to go wrong, but that being said, there are a couple little bits as they get older. A little bit of rust, wiper motors, that sort of thing, so it certainly takes a point or two off. But overall, we give it a very respectable 7.5 out of 10. Now, thank you so much for watching. hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and we'll see you on the next one.